sub-region. So the session, as Yusuf already mentioned, is titled Regional and Global R&E Communities. So we will hear about collaborative research and education endeavors, and we get the opportunity to get the user perspective on the support that ASREN and the wider networking community offers or can offer. And we have a lineup of very interesting speakers, so very welcome to you as well. And I will introduce you as we go along. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce now our first speaker, Dr. Andrea Lausi, my compatriot.
Helga, can you just 1 minute? We are still 5 minutes before the start.
I see.
Start. So I just try to make some chat
Absolutely.
between yourselves, and if you want to start introducing your speakers, it's better to start at 9 so that we are committed to people who will join at 9.
That's absolutely fine. See, I always like to work ahead the curve and help my time management, but that's absolutely fine. So I welcome you again, speakers. I had some email exchange with Juan Miguel already. Hello, Miguel. Andrea Lausi, we share the same alma mater, University of Trieste in Italy. I know Salman obviously quite well from previous experiences. Rachad Sanoussi, I don't know if I pronounce your name properly.
Yes, it is good.
Thank you very much. Then we have Declan Kirrane. So Declan, are you joining us from Brussels or from Ireland? It's not, he's muted. Well, then Dr. Mahaman Bachir Saley, I'd also like to sanity check the pronunciation of your name.
Hello, madam. Good morning. Yes,
Good morning.
the name is well pronounced. It's exactly like this.
Okay.
Mahaman Bachir Saley. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, I'm an interpreter by training, so I should know a little bit, but sometimes names do throw me. So Declan, are you here? No, still not. Still probably sorting out his presentation. So just if I already outlined the structure, the suggested structure, that I introduce you one by one, and please try to keep within the 15 minutes speaking time so that we have also time for questions and answers, because yes, we are 6 speakers. So math tells me that just the speaking time itself is about 90 minutes. So yes, that's all from me. If you have any questions at this stage. So silence, I don't know, in this context is always good.
Maybe you will be. Maybe we will send an alert on the chat, yeah, when I will be approaching my 15 minutes, just to be, because.
Andrea, you are again muted.
Yeah,
oh, you were...
I lifted the finger from the from the bar. Sorry, because I'm connected to my phone, and I had to put it to the. I normally use it as a timer also, but now I had to connect it to the plug, and so it's not here anymore. So I depend.
Okay. Yes, I will give you a heads up. I will give you, I don't have a bell. I should actually have a bell, shouldn't I? Yes.
Yeah,
but no, I give you a heads up in the chat. I do it privately. Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Now, I don't know, Yusuf, is Professor Jemni joining us?
I'm trying to send him WhatsApp, so I think when it's 9, please start, and I will. When he joins, you can introduce him.
Wonderful.
Actually, he's very busy with actually the ALECSO and League of Arab States and the ISQA all are are in continuous meeting at ITU and all of them. So I'm not sure about his calendar, but I will chat with him now. So
Excellent.
I think it's 9 now, so we can start.
Yes, I just would like to check with Declan here. Good morning to you. Are you joining us from Brussels or Ireland?
Brussels.
Today? Brussels, okay. Good. Okay, then I think we kick off.
Morning, Juan Miguel.
So you know, some of you know each other already. That is
Yes, I know Yosef. Good morning, Yosef.
Good morning. Good morning. And
Sabah
good
Morning,
al-Khayri.
Yusuf.
Sabah al-Khayri.
Sabah al-Khayri, good morning. I need to take care of all the speakers and especially Declan because he has many things that we can build on.
No. It's a sharing exercise.
excellent. Okay, I already did a rehearsal of my intro, so I just don't repeat everything, but I would like to welcome everyone to this first session on day 2 of the conference. And we will hear accounts, we will hear the user perspective here on the networking communities offering. So we will hear about collaborative research and education activities. We have a really nice panel of speakers here, and I will introduce them one by one. So we start off with the first speaker, Dr. Andrea Lausi, who is the scientific director at SESAME, the synchrotron facility located in Jordan. And he will give us an overview of the activities at SESAME and also the efforts to establish SESAME as a major scientific hub in the Middle East. And I know that Andrea joined SESAME in March this year, so his arrival pretty much coincided with the pandemic-enforced lockdown. So I look forward to his impressions since then. Over to you, Andrea.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Helga. And it's really a pleasure to be here. And I will start sharing immediately, so you will see where I am actually, and how. Where is the sharing button? Share screen. Here it is. Okay. So. Is now here PowerPoint share. You should see it's full screen, right?
Perfect. Yes. Thank you.
So as you see, even if it's locked down, it's not a bad place where to stay. I'm living just 2 kilometers from here, in the middle of the olive trees of the hills northwest of Amman. So it's a wonderful place, and I'm very happy to be here. And it's also a very safe place from the COVID point of view, even if we have been hit by the pandemic in our functioning, as you can imagine, as everybody. So I will give you a brief introduction of what oh, this is strange. Okay, so where we are is here. As you see, we are near Amman, and we are a very peculiar institution, one of the few non-national synchrotron radiation centers, in the sense it is our members are Cyprus, Egypt, Iran, Israel, Jordan, Pakistan, Palestine, and Turkey. And we also have a set of observers. So it is made up on the model of the CERN, even if our scientific purpose is completely different from that of CERN, which is a collider. So we are producing and using essentially X-rays, soft X-rays, ultraviolet, infrared to study matter. Obviously, since the beginning of last century, the discovery of X-rays has produced and has augmented incredibly our capabilities in investigate matter. So here is a little of the history from Röntgen and the ring that when he exposed his wife's and not his hand to the X-rays. And I just imagine the scene. Dear, come here, put your hand there, please, just a second. And then in the 70s, accelerator machines, which had been designed for colliders, started to be used, to be built and used also for producing X-rays. Then you accelerate simply electrons, the lightest particle, you maximize this effect, and you have fantastic sources of electromagnetic radiation for studying the matter. So these are many of these buildings around the world. Some of them look like flying sausages landed, some are more building-like, like SESAME, and they are spread out all over the world with, as you see in this picture, and we will return on that, with the only exception of Africa. And SESAME is the only one at the moment between Europe and India. So what makes a synchrotron so special is there are many characteristics of the beam, actually, but I want to point out the two most important, which is the fact that with this kind of source, you cover an enormously wide spectrum of radiation. So you go from microwaves up to X-rays and all that is in between. And you have this with an extreme brilliance, which is not flux, is better than flux. It's not only flux, but also the fact that the beam are very collimated, are very directed in the forward direction. So the angle is very narrow. And this makes life more easier for the people who has to make experiments with them. So this is the energy range which you can obtain with this kind of machines. So you go from microwave through infrared, visible, ultraviolet, and X-rays, soft X-rays, hard X-rays. In this range, the interaction of radiation with matter changes dramatically, and we get completely different information and complementary informations depending on the wavelength that we decide to use to investigate matter. You go from infrared, you see molecule dancing, up to X-rays where you find out where the atoms are in matter, and all in between you get chemical informations, essentially, because you interact with the electrons of the systems. And the other characteristics is I don't have to explain to you what the Moore's law is, not in this environment, but this is the increase of brilliance of this parameter of how many photons you can put in a very tiny spot over the years. And as you see, it's definitely a story of success. We went from the X-ray tubes up to already 1 million higher just by using a synchrotron, and optimizing them 10 millions higher, then billions higher with the third generations, and billions of billions higher when we speak of free electron lasers. A machine is made, they are more or less made all in the same way. There is a main ring where electrons are circulated at the speed of light. To make the long story short, these are essentially antennas working with electrons moving at the speed of light, this makes the physical effect that allows us to have this fantastic radiation. In an antenna, you have dipole emission in all directions. With a synchrotron, you have a very straight, very forward, tiny beam of X-rays, and very intense. And this is just because we are moving the electrons at that incredible speed. So you have an injection system, a ring where these electrons are made circulate for as long as we can. And then we have objects outside of it, which are called beamlines, which are the laboratories which use the radiation which is emitted tangent to the ring to the users. And with these photons, Jemni, here we can do many kinds of different experiments. You have, I will leave it's just the fantasy of the experimenter, which is the only limit of what can be done, at what the kind of information that can be obtained. But essentially everything between structural and chemical about a material sample can be obtained. You want microanalysis, you can have it. You can want to know where the atoms are, you can have it. You want to know which chemical species you want, you can have it. You want which elements are there, you can have it, and so on and so forth. And around this, so around the round machine, which is not visible, then you have an environment made of many of these beamlines, which are using you see these pipes here. They are bringing the radiation down to the experiment. So when you have a mature source like this one, which is in the United States, you have actually a science cultural center, because there are so many different things that you can do with these machines that you have users, thousands of users per year coming, performing experiments, speaking to each other, and cross-fertilizing ideas between archaeologists, with computer scientists, etc. Not only each of these synchrotrons is an ecosystem, but synchrotrons among them tend to form ecosystems in order to deal with the various kinds of technical problems. So this is a picture of LEAPS, for example. This is the League of Advanced Accelerator-based Sources in Europe, which contains synchrotron facilities and free electron lasers. And you see the impact is quite high, 5 Nobel Prizes, 23,400 published articles peer-reviewed in 5 years, and so on and so forth. So it's really quite an effort, and SESAME is part of it. So it's a piece of beads. It's the only of LEAPS. It's the only associate machine to this club. Okay, so we have on one side our technologies, sources, optics, detectors, IT infrastructures, which have to cross with the various and very different kind of sciences that you can make, that you can perform. So I made here just a few examples of what are the maybe the most impactful arguments and themes for the science which is performed nowadays at synchrotron radiation sources, from biosciences, which clearly the effort this year was dedicated to COVID-19 mostly, and then nanomagnetism. This is something that has to do with IT, because we need to squeeze more stuff in less space, according to Moore's law, actually. Catalysis, environmental sciences, we have to better the shape of our planet, energy-related materials to store energy or to produce energy, and cultural heritage is also a quite frequent user of synchrotron radiation, because these radiations are not invasive. You can get information without destroying your sample. You don't want to destroy the Gioconda. So but you can still have information about it. So technologically, these things, just also to show you something, how it looks like, sources have been the major problem of, and the major object of development of the 80s and of the 90s. Obtaining more and more brilliant sources. This is an undulator at Bessie 2 in Berlin. Then in the 90s and early 2000, the attention has been maybe moved more to the optics, the objective which tames the radiation provided by the synchrotron and brings to the experiment. And here you see a mirror chamber at SESAME when it is placed in place. The design here comes from a beamline of diamond, as you see, that it's a quite complex objective. And at the end of everything, there is a sample that there will be a detector, which will give us the information of the interaction of radiation with matter. It can be electron detectors. We can detect electrons or photons normally. And here you have the most advanced things that this has been normally the bottleneck until few years ago. Now we have finally a class of detectors which are able to cope with the enormous intensity of the radiation which is coming out of the synchrotron. So now we have moved the boundaries of the problem to the data treatment, and the flow of data is now the major problem to tackle, the new frontier. Sources are all right, or are still developing, but we know a lot about sources. We know a lot about optics, we did a lot of things. We know a lot about detectors, finally, but now we have to find a way to circulate, use, and store one beamline, for example. This is the infrastructure of the Beats beamline, which was made together with the Cyprus Institute and SESAME and our partners in Europe. The Beats beamline is the tomography beamline, which is under construction now, thanks to a European grant at SESAME. And this will produce at least 2 terabytes of data per day. And so we are aiming at 0.5 petabytes of storage for just for the time needed for the users to download them and to start analyzing. And the crosstalk between all these objects is obviously challenging. So it is important to point out that so the message, one of the messages for today is this. So now we are going to ask help, because we are going to need more IT. So in order to match the quality of what we have already, we need to get a better IT structure, both in terms of instruments and in terms of manpower. So this is more or less the main message that we as users of IT at this point are asking around. We are shifting our attention to IT. We are still in the infancy of this, but we will try to do our best. Then, what is the role of SESAME at this point in all this? SESAME is a mosaic, as you have seen, with all the members, the observers, the geographical positions. And so it is born in order, this is the first 3 lines here are engraved in the statute of SESAME. So we are here to foster the excellence in science and technology in the Middle East. But this was 20 years ago when it was started to foreseen. The world has changed. I think that now we have to find out, now that after in 2018, after many years, the machine was constructed and the beamlines and the scientists are coming, we have users, we have to find out our position in the ecosystem of the synchrotrons. And so we need to find out what is the specialty of SESAME. And the specialties of SESAME, think at where we are. We are in the cradle of history here. So cultural heritage is one of the things that we will put on. Cultural heritage means tomography, essentially, which means a lot of data to be produced and a lot of data to be tamed and a lot of data to be transferred. Another thing that we can do is foster the African light source. We can be an example of being an international enterprise. We can be an example of how a future African light source can be built out of contributions of different members. And we can be also a training beacon for the African light source and for from users of in the region. not only address our attention to the Middle East, but also to Africa in this moment, and do things. Use also. We have learned something from this pandemic. Yeah? We have initiated a way of working which was never there. We were having congresses and workshops and hands-on training. But now we have also, we know that remote training is there for us. We have made an experience of it. It's not always ideal, but it has also good things in it. The kind of focus that you have in an online meeting is different, obviously, but it's positive also that we must use both of them. We will never abandon, in my opinion, this dual modality now that we have discovered the power of online meetings and workshops. And this can be, again, a very powerful tool for someone like SESAME, which is isolated geographically from Europe and United States, where are the other two big concentrations of this kind of instruments, of Japan. So it brings them much closer to us and we much closer to them. And this is what I wanted to say, and I thank you. And we are in pandemic and we cannot see each other, but really the environment here is splendid. And I hope you to see in person, to fill the rooms as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for this very insightful presentation. I've always been really impressed with SESAME, the concept itself, because it's a wonderful example of science diplomacy, so to speak. So where political discussion or political considerations come to a standstill, science moves on. And particularly in the Middle East, I just find that really, really good. And for me, it was also music to my ears when I heard you say that potentially SESAME could act as a blueprint for having a light source also on the rest of the African continent. Because that was one of the questions I prepared, so you anticipated that. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's a question of pooling resources and sharing expertise and best practice, and then obviously get the backup for financing the whole project. But the willingness is there, so thank you very much for that. I wonder if there are any other questions for Andrea? See in the question and answer. No, not in the box. But I hear you also, obviously, when the tomography beamline comes into operation, I think that is in a couple of years' time.
Couple of years, 2023.
Yes, in a couple of years' time. As you say, the data deluge will be massive. And I do hope that ASREN and the rest of the research and education networking community can help, because obviously all these raw data, they are useless if you don't analyze and visualize them. So, and you can't perpetually store them at ALEN. So reliable connectivity and secure connectivity is a must. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so then moving on, our next speaker is Dr. Mahaman Bachir Saley. He is the Senior Scientific Officer at the African Union Commission, and his presentation will focus on the GMES and Africa initiative, which supports cooperation between Africa and Europe in the area of Earth observation. And being a scientist by training, he is very well positioned to give a first-hand account of the challenges and opportunities for African countries and for African scientists to access this Earth observation data and to contribute to informed decision-making for sustainable development. So the screen and the mic is yours, Dr. Saley.
Thank you, Helga. Thank you. Let me share my screen. Are you able to see my screen, colleague?
We can see your screen, but not your slides.
How about now?
That's it now. Thank you.
Are you seeing the screen?
Yes, we do now.
It's
Thank
okay
you.
now?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And good morning to our colleague. And thank you for this opportunity you are giving us to share some information of GMES and Africa program. The video is also working. The video is also working, colleague.
No, we can't see a video. We see the slides, the title slide.
Okay. Yeah, it will be good also. Ah, yes. Let me share the video also. I think we are good now. It's okay?
I don't know which video
Video and
we don't see a video.
It's
We
okay.
see we see your presentation. I understand you're trying to launch a video, but unfortunately all I can see on my screen is them myself, which is probably not the best.
There we are.
It's okay now, I think.
Yeah, we can see your video and we can see your slides. So you can start with your slides.
Okay. And the presentation is okay. And the presentation also.
I think you need to share your presentation though, because you yes, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. It's okay. 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 I can start. Hello? Hello?
Yes, yes. Would you like to start?
Yes. Can I start? It's okay?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yes, please do.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I want to share with you the information about the GMES and Africa program. I will start by a brief presentation of GMES and Africa support program, and then the contribution of GMES and Africa to support research and education. So the GMES and Africa program, it's a initiative. It's an for the African development context. I want to start first by the challenges we have in Africa. As you may know, in Africa, our challenges are on climate change, disaster and risk reduction, sustainable development, movement, migration, and in Africa, we have 60% youth. All these 60% are 30 years age. The economy we have are based on agriculture and natural resources, energy, blue economy, and digital infrastructure. This is really what is the GMES Africa program. The GMES and Africa program is a joint African Union and the European Union initiative, and it's a long-standing cooperation between Africa Union and Union Commission. And the GMES and Africa, it's really a kind of unique historical continuity. We started since 2021 by the PUMA program. All these programs, I want to remind it, all these programs are using Earth observation. So it starts since the PUMA program, then MIA program.
I don't know if it is just for me. Apologies if I interrupt.
We have the phase.
But you are very faded. You are breaking up.
What is the it's to implement.
Can we communicate? Excuse me, Dr. Saley. You are very your sound is very well. It's breaking up. So you have already taken off your video, but I personally find it very difficult to follow. I don't know the others, or is it just my connection problem?
Actually, it's the same. From here also, we have the same problem in hearing him. So I think it's from his side. So I don't know what to do.
Can't hear in Brussels either.
No, I think if that is okay, and if Yasmin could kindly communicate with Dr. Saley, if we move on to the next speaker and then return to Dr. Saley later on, so that he gets a chance maybe to look into his issues there. Is that acceptable, Yusuf? Or Professor Saley?
Dr. Saley, Dr. Mahaman, can you double check the internet from your connection from your side, and meanwhile we go to the next speaker so that we can make use of the session time? Is that okay with you?
Wonderful. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. Just to return briefly, Andrea, there was also a question for you in the chat window from Joki Ben Romdane. So, which criteria may be filled by institutions in order to join the SESAME network? And are you going to share your knowledge on a platform such Open Data or Open Archive as CERN is doing? So I would encourage you to provide the answer directly in that question and answer chat window. Just wanted to
which I tried, but it was too slow. It was slowing down the rest of my receiving, so I abandoned the trial. But I will now. Maybe I will try now.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we then move on we go to Spain, from where Dr. Juan Miguel González Aranda is joining us. He is the CTO of LifeWatch Eric, and that is the European e-science infrastructure for biodiversity and ecosystem research. And since preserving biodiversities and associated research obviously don't stop at the border, Juan Miguel is going to explore whether synergies with ASREN in the Arab world can be achieved. So over to you, Juan.
Hello, hello again. First of all, can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? Yes.
We can.
Yes, we can.
Yes. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. So good morning. First of all, it's a real pleasure and an honor to be here because from my curriculum vitae perspective, I've been collaborating with the so-called under the auspices of EuroMed program and Union for the Mediterranean for 7-8 years. So 10 years ago. So to me, it's a pleasure to be again with my colleagues, brothers and sisters from Morocco to Syria, Palestine, all my colleagues there. So thank you very much for this invitation. And as Helga, thank you very much for sharing this session as well. I would like to introduce in a very general context how we can establish synergies with ASREN, e-AGE, on e-Biodiversity. You can check, I'm remarking in red color, E for the ICT context, biodiversity for EU Green Deal and Sustainable Development Goals 2030 accomplishment. Okay. As you know very well, dealing with biodiversity and ecosystems, that is everything that is surrounding us, is quite complex. Quite complex because we need to deal with biodiversity, ecosystem functioning, climate change, habitat fragmentation, losses, species bases, invasions, compound impacts, considering the Earth as a single complex and coupled system. We're talking about atmosphere, lithosphere, so on, and it's extremely important to address the environmental challenges to support knowledge-based strategic solutions for environmental issues in a global climate context scenario, so that we need to provide the proper e-services in this regard to deal with all of them from the perspective of how to offer the best state of art of ICT. So, as you know well, in order to guarantee the human well-being, it's necessary to understand what is the nature about our environment. We need to understand the ecosystem function and services, and in turn, the ecosystem services that we can provide or to be provided in a sustainable way in order to accomplish the Sustainable Development Goals. In that sense, we have recently identified, and after a very in detail assessment, 12 key ecosystem services by a survey of experts who identified a minimum of 231 strong dependencies of Sustainable Development Goals targets on multiple ecosystem services. So, because if we want to deal with no poverty, zero hunger, good health, clean water, clean energy, we need in turn to understand what about food provision, water provision, raw materials, genetic resources, carbon storage, moderation streams, water regulation, erosion, nutrient cycling, erosion control, water quality, pest and disease control, pollination, habitat and biodiversity, air quality, cultural and spiritual. This is very important, more than the people think, and recreation and tourism as well. So we need to guarantee the welfare of the people, but from the point of view of identifying the proper indicators to deal with this. So that the ecosystem services from biodiversity to human well-being, the cycle that loop you could see in the previous slide, is necessary to that regard to assess and monitor the ecosystem functions, the ecological processes, and biodiversity upon humans' well-being depends on. Why? Because in order to guarantee the human welfare, and in order to guarantee the economics of ecosystem and biodiversity, we need to understand the resilience of ecosystems, the limits, the thresholds, because you know better than me that what we are suffering today with coronavirus 19 crisis is a consequence of the bad practice of breaking the resilience, going beyond the threshold of ecosystems through zoonosis, bad practice in farms, etc. It happened with a lot of disease, and this is not the only one. Some of them are Kevin. The West Nile virus, Zika, etc. We are talking about the crisis of invasive alien species. So in some way, we need to understand what is going on. Let's go to the point. Why we are today? We are today because ASREN community is extremely important, is essential. The Arab States Research and Education Network is essential, and we would like, in a very honest and very humble way, to support, to collaborate in understanding how we can deal with this ecosystem services paradigm from the point of view to support to identify key biodiversity areas, as well as systematic methods for conservation planning with the support of state-of-art of ICT. For both the management of the information itself, as our colleague Andrea Lausi is sharing, and sharing his opinion, it's very complex, the data flow, the data traffic of this is a real challenge, and how to provide analysis, simulation, and modeling e-tools, mainly given in the form of decision support tools for environmental managers in order to accomplish green sustainable development goals objectives, but also European Union Green Deal objectives. So that's why we are today. And in that sense, we made our homework. We went through all the International Union of Nature Conservation, Mediterranean species status, and then I will go to Arabia Peninsula, and we assess, based on giant shoulders, on people that really know better than us, what is going on with the biodiversity. What is the situation of threatened species in the Mediterranean from the point of view of vertebrates, invertebrates, plants? The mitigation strategy, by the way, I would like to congratulate our colleagues from the ASREN area, the countries, because they're doing very well in the identify. They got clear ideas on how to identify key biodiversity areas under the paradigm of all protected areas, support the inclusion of that key biodiversity areas, and improve a management plan. Here you can see a small assessment from Morocco, Syria, Algeria, Lebanon, Tunisia, Palestine, Egypt, Jordan, Libya, and Iraq, in dealing with the main tackling with the threat main drivers: agriculture and aquaculture, biological resource use, climate change, energy production, geological, and so on. I will release those slides for you from the point of view of freshwater, terrestrial, and marine ecosystems. Because in order to be in an organized way, from the point of view of ASREN community, we have focused initially on Northern Africa, Maghreb, part of Middle East and Mediterranean areas, and now on the Arabian Peninsula area. In the Arabian Peninsula area, I would like to congratulate the community, biodiversity community, because they have produced very nice documents. They have got clear ideas on how to address with the key biodiversity areas to keep, to preserve, and they have defined a very nice loop diagram of which are the stages in systematic conservation and planning from the directives of the International Union for Conservation Nature. We were learning a lot, and this is a way to start, a very nice way to start for collaboration, because they got killer ideas, and we would like, from the European Union perspective, as official research infrastructure on biodiversity, e-biodiversity, and ecosystem research to support on giant shoulders. We got GÉANT, we got EUDAT, we got PRAISE, we got EuroHPC, we got the European Open Science Club, not reinventing the wheel. So, being there, Helga, yourself, all our friends that are now working there. This is what we're going, because we know what is about there and how we can deal with all these points. From the point of view of the European Green Deal, biodiversity is essential. And so that, like what Sherik, is a European e-science distributed infrastructure focus on how to measure the impact of global climate change issues on Earth, as I told you. And the expected impact is to be a structuring tool from the point of view of the European research and innovation area. I will repeat, and innovation, by following the premises, the policy premises of the Coming Horizon Europe program. Addressing society challenges which demand scientific knowledge in a global climate change scenario, including citizen science activities. But not alone, with friends, always hand to hand with the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, Research Data Alliance. You know, all this movement about the digital object identifiers, persistent identifiers, Copernicus and Galileo program, also GÉANT. I'm missing here some logos. It's not possible to put every one of them. Our colleagues from GÉANT, the GÉANT as well, European Green Deal, Air Center, and last but not least, the European Open Science Club and EuroHPC, among others. And not only, you can see there are a lot of them with all the regions of the world. And where are we? We are from the point of view of the Global Biodiversity Informatics Outlooks, stated by Hover et al. In 2012, we are on the top of 4 layers: culture, data, evidence, and understanding. We need to understand what is going on by providing the proper multi-scale species modeling, trends and prediction, modeling biological system visualization and dissemination, and prioritizing new data capture from the point of view that we're providing 2 key products. One of them is the so-called Tesseract. That is a virtual research environment. It's the next generation based on GCube platform. So that's the reason we call it Tesseract, the evolution of the MetaCube, no? Of that. And LifeWatch, that maybe is the first blockchain system, because you know very well, better than me, that it's about traceability, accounting, accountability. That's blockchain, but the added value we are providing is distributed valorization of the ecosystem services for the fiction supporting tool. How to measure from the socioeconomic point of view the value of applying some mitigation in some areas or not, with some mathematical modelings, and so this is our system about. So that now this is a reality. We have tangible reality collaborating with Latin America and Caribbean, mostly with Costa Rica, with Uruguay, with Mexico, with Chile, with Argentina. I can tell you all the names. And we are starting with Africa. From the point of view, putting the eye in promoting sustainable agriculture support, such as agroecology and fisheries, and development for biodiversity, green and blue mechanisms. So we are integrating for small sensors, nano sensors, micro sensors towards remote sensing, because we need to understand micro scale biodiversity, mesoscale. Meso is the area we are developing our lives, and the macro scale from remote sensing to sensors. So, and this is the last slide. What we are proposing from the strategic point of view, to create a committee of wise people, ICT experts here, but also innovation and policy decision makers to deal with which are the key challenges to be addressed for the point of view of how the e-biodiversity and ecosystem research and sustainable green management and innovation techniques can support to all our people in our countries. And for points I'm coming from the integrated water resource management and agriculture. I've been collaborating in Jordan many years as well in this tech. How we can include cost-cutting issues such as integrated water resource management, irrigation, water, forest, microplastics. Microplastics is a real nightmare right now. Plastics is a real nightmare. I just read a very interesting article, paper about what is happening with in the camels. They're finding balls of plastic there. It's a disaster, not only in fisheries, but in mammals, in terrestrial mammals. It's a disaster. We need to do something. We need action. But we need to understand what is happening in order to be efficient in how to proceed to support. And we have a key role from the ICT perspective. And as I told you before, not reinventing the wheel. If ASREN is there, if GÉANT is there, if EUDAT is there, don't not reinvent a new invention, please. Let's, even for analysis of materials with our colleagues for SESAME, let's try, our previous speaker, but unfortunately he could introduce, let's use what is going on, the existing networks, no? And try then, last but not least, to federate in an operational way by providing a proper virtual research environment to enhance e-research collaboration among us. And let's focus in one concrete pilot study case: water management, microplastics, whatever we need to integrate for micro scale, mesoscale, and macro scale. ICT from the sensor, from the cloud computing, for the supercomputing, from the perspective of what we call grid, communications. For that big data, GÉANT will be essential as well. Jolly ASREN is for all those big data, data to be commuted. And let's do as soon as possible, based on the premises of Sustainable Development Goals, accomplishment, and becoming European Union Green Deal. That, if I may, is a great opportunity to advance in this regard. And all of this is without forgetting our people. forgetting our people, the children, the new generations, the elderly people, this tacit knowledge. And the next generation, this picture was taken in my former high school in Andalusia. I am from Spain, I am from Andalusia. I'm calling you from close to Doñana, close to Seville. We are the melting pot of many cultures. We are very proud of that. We are connected as good Mediterranean everywhere, Andrea, you know. So, and many of you are Mediterranean, of course. And this is always thinking next generations. We have now the best ever young people generation with ICT skills. And we need to go through from Morocco to all the countries, Palestine, to identify those people with that passion, with that way to support jointly us to provide the best of ICT to deal with the challenges of biodiversity, deterioration, and all of this, but with in an organized way, with following certain very concrete workflows to deal with this. And without forgetting our ancestors, our grandparents, all that tacit knowledge that cannot be missing, because we think that we can balance the traditional knowledge with the new ICT knowledge altogether to keep on going advancing. I'm sorry to repeat, I will repeat again what we're experiencing right now with the coronavirus is a lesson of humbling to the human being. Resilience of ecosystems. We need to understand the thresholds, the limits. If we don't understand what is going on, we can have a lot of data, a lot of big data, but if we don't know for what we want them, it's for anything. And that's my point for my presentation. And thank you very much for this opportunity, because to me it's very important to be today here, because as it happened with the European Water Framework Directive, that was successful, I was involved in that with our brothers and sisters. The Mediterranean must be, for instance, seen as a context altogether. You cannot go only to one side of the Mediterranean or the other. We must work together, and in particular in climate change, if all those topics on biodiversity, sustainable ecosystem management, by taking benefit of the state of art of ICT, from remote sensing, sensors, GÉANT, ASREN, EUDAT, praise. That's the idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Juan Miguel. I certainly hear the passion. The message was very loud and clear, and I wholeheartedly agree. We need to join forces. It's a question of if you want to have impact, and impact I always measure of having impact, also societal impact. So I have impact on the man, woman, and child on the street, and teaming up is what's required. And that translates also to the world of IT, to the world I am most familiar with, connectivity and services. We need to demonstrate the impact. And I'm sure my colleagues at ASREN look very much forward to working with you, the same as my colleagues at GÉANT do. And maybe Youssef or Salem, if you want to comment on what Juan Miguel outlined in terms of going forward.
Okay, maybe very quickly, actually, because keeping the session time, because we have some delays. We are so keen. Actually, we had some chat with my best presenter. I'm sorry for all our, but I like the passion that I felt in the presentation. So we'll definitely be in touch. We'll take care, and it is on our agenda. It's already on our agenda, but now we find we know how to. We have the start now, so that's great. I would like to thank you again. But just another note, actually, so we have the presentation slides of Dr. Saley, so we'll share them from our side, and he will just do the talk.
Yes, I understand.
Moving ahead, so that's you can start.
Yes,
and
let's do that.
I'd like also to welcome Mohamed Jemni. He is with us now. I'd like also to welcome Mohamed Jemni. He is with us now.
Thank you very much.
So can we then share Dr. Saley's presentation, and we give Dr. Saley the word again.
Okay, waiting for the presentation.
It's up, we can see it. Thank you.
It's up, we can see it. Thank you.
Should we start from the beginning, or should I continue from the African map I was presenting?
I would suggest to start from scratch, but please keep to the 15 minutes.
To start from scratch, but please keep to the 15 minutes.
Okay. Okay, thank you, colleague. I'm not seeing the, okay. Thank you, colleague, for the opportunity. I will hurry and then, so the brief presentation will be to present you GMES and Africa program, and then what we can contribute to. So we can go to the next, so that we can present the program. So the program is, as I'm saying, it's an European, an African development program. So we were talking about the different challenges we have in Africa in terms of agriculture, in terms of climate change, disaster and risk reduction, sustainable development challenges, and then our economy in Africa is based most of the time on agriculture, natural resources and water, energy, and blue economy. Next program, next slide. Yes, next slide. About the joint, the history of GMES and Africa. It's a joint Africa Union and the European Union initiative, and it's a long-term cooperation. So GMES and Africa program, it's a unique historical continuity. It starts since Puma 21, and then AMSD program from 27, and then MESA program, and now GMES Africa program from 2017 to 2020. So all these programs are Earth observation program. Next, please. So the objective of GMES and Africa support program is to implement the Earth observation segment for the African space policy and strategy, and to enhance long-term strategic cooperation, to promote the development of local capacities, to enable the two continents, Africa and Europe, to jointly solve and address specific and global challenges, and also to provide policy makers, scientists, business, and the public with EU services. Next, please. The GMES and Africa support program is working on three main thematic areas: natural resources, marine and coastal area, water and water resources. So for these three thematic area, we are providing two services: water, natural resources, marine and coastal. Next, please. The GMES and Africa, its program is a Pan-African program. We are working with 12 consortia. What are we calling consortia? A consortia is a partnership among research centers, national or regional bodies, academia, and sometimes even private sector. That's what we call consortia. In GMES and Africa, as you see on this map, we have 12 consortia from the north part, central part, east part. So our consortia, that's why we are saying GMES and Africa is a Pan-African program. So we have consortia in the 5 regions of Africa. Next, please. The contribution, what can be the contribution of GMES and Africa initiative to support research and education? Next, please. Next slide, please. In terms of contribution of GMES and Africa Initiative to support research and education, we have in terms of the use of technology, digitalization and scientific evidence to improve the management of natural resources. Next slide, please. In terms of contribution also for coming from GMS, it's about the using of Earth observation data. With this Earth observation data, we will have the option to have a wide coverage, high frequency of revisit, high spatial resolution data, and multi-spectral bands. You can have also in terms of contribution, radar and optic sentinel image data. We are working closely with European partners. As you see, we have Copernicus, you have European Spatial Agency, we have GSC and the UMES. Next slide, please. In terms of contribution also, since 21, there is a lot of infrastructure in terms of e-station, UMETCA, Copernicus apps, and the data and the information access service also. So as you will see on this map, we have almost since 21, a lot of installation installed all over the Africa. And this is to provide really Earth observation data to the users. Next slide, please. On this program also, who started this GMS, who started since 2017, we have also another new 12 new station to be installed also. And the priority will be given to the North Africa, which are the new really coming in terms of consortia. Next slide, please. In GMS and the Africa program, it's really full, free and open access to Copernicus data. This is the agreement we have with Copernicus data. So you have really the option, the possibility to have a Sentinel with 5 days for Sentinel-2 to really to access, to monitor and to focus natural resources everywhere in Africa. So this methodology is really cost effective with this use of Sentinel data. For Sentinel data in terms of assessing, monitoring. Next slide, please. In terms with since this COVID situation in GMS, we are doing a lot of training of user, training of some partners. So we have a digital learning platform which is available, and on this digital learning platform, you will have access to more than 100 courses. It will be courses most of time related to EO, Earth observation, and it will be communication on EO. It will be processing, image processing. It will be programming. It will be maintenance of e-station. So on this platform, all these courses are available and really free of charge. On next slide, please. On GMS also, we are actually on the process of finalizing in putting on place what we call the virtual network platform. We are expecting on this platform really to have an option to have a technical link, a link between technical, non-technical expert in order to share expertise. We want this kind of platform to be really an opportunity for experience sharing, for collaborative work, and the opportunity of harmonization in terms of data sharing. And as you know, with this situation, it's not easy to travel. It's not easy. So it's really an opportunity for scientists working on EU to have this kind of platform and work together. Next slide, please, which is almost the last. GMES and Africa, it's really a community. It's a community of 12 consortia, as you saw it on this map, all over Africa. It's 72 partners, including research centers, academia, national and regional bodies. It's 117 institution, African institution and European institution also. It's also 53 associated, including private sector, NGO. Among the 55 countries, we have 47 African countries involved in this project. And we have also among our partners, 5 European countries involved in Africa. So this is the last slide. The last one will be to thank colleagues, all the team to give us this opportunity to talk on GMS and Africa, and we will be.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Saley. I think your sound is breaking up again, but thank you very much. The entire African networking community, so our sister organizations, UbuntuNet and ASREN, will be also very pleased to continue the collaboration with you. If there are any further questions, I would suggest we treat them in the chat window, please, just for the purpose of keeping it within the time this session. So I would like to move on now to the next speaker, Declan Kirrane, who is a science policy expert, and he is also the director of the EU-Africa Science Cooperation Platform. And I am intrigued to hear how science and technology will redefine banking, as the title of his talk suggests. So over to you, Declan.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Hello?
We can indeed, Declan.
Good, good. Okay, just checking. You can never be too sure. Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for having me. And thank you to the previous speakers for their excellent expostulation of some amazing science from Jordan to Spain. And just really as a pickup point, I want to really commend Juan Miguel on his highlighting of the United Nations SDGs, amongst many other things, but just that as a point of engagement, because that's going to be where really I start. So just by way of a disclaimer, I'm not a scientist, so just bear that in mind. Yeah. So just want to get that out there. But as I said, really delighted to have such science at this level being presented. And of course, thanks so much to Dr. Yusuf for making this and previous meetings like it available. It's hugely important. As you may know, I am, if anything, a globalist. And I think certainly I'll come back to it again, but I think in an almost, we're not there yet, but in an almost post-COVID world, I think we are having a much greater appreciation of science and the contribution of science to the world. And I think science has had a good year, according to some commentators. And also, from my perspective, one takeaway from this year has been the ease with which policymakers can get their head around the idea of cooperation, global collaboration, and of course, global collaboration in science and indeed other disciplines. So that's hugely important. And from my experience, I've always found that a bit of a hard sell, to be honest, because I think we by default, of course, and again, for our non-European guests and friends here this morning, I apologize for my Euro bias, but there you go. I sometimes think, certainly in Europe and indeed other places in the world, there is a tendency towards science nationalism and all that means in terms of funding, in terms of ability to share and all that sort of good stuff. So I think, again, that the experiences of this year have maybe refocused that discussion into one of global collaboration and global participation. But again, I'd be the first to point out that to some degree, that the policy structures perhaps don't yet exist to allow true global collaboration. So what I'm hoping to do is really just have some intervention on some of the points we've been addressing earlier today, around the data aspects of science, but then going towards why I feel that banking is going to be, or is becoming more germane and more important, and why I think that will result in almost a redefinition of how banking works. So really just on the SDGs to point out, as I'm not sure if many of you know, but look at the etymology, and just to point out that David Donoghue, the then permanent or representative, or indeed ambassador at the Irish representation to the United Nations, along with his Kenyan counterpart, Dr. Kamau, got this narrative together. And certainly I'm not going to go through, you'll be familiar. And I wasn't going to use, I said to myself, I won't use this slide if somebody else has used the slide before me today, and nobody has, so I'll use it. So, but you're all familiar with it. As I said, I'm not going to go through them. You're familiar with them, but just really to point out that these challenges, these goals they're a very eloquent narrative, around what we're facing as challenges, and why we need to face these challenges together. Of course, these were quite prescient when you consider that they were developed long before COVID. Hello? Is there? Okay. Long before COVID.
Declan, just to briefly, could you remove, there is a box title, give subtitles a try, that's hovering over your slide, so we can't see
that,
the
yeah, but I can't turn it off. Okay, I'm not sure if that's better.
Yes, that is. Thank you.
Oh,
now. Oh, God.
Yeah. Sorry about that, but of course we want to get rid of this. Yeah, is that better? Okay, so what it's giving me is closed captions. Okay, here we go. Anyway, let's benefit from the technology. But anyway, on the SDGs, I suppose the key point I want to drive, and have been trying to drive, and I think there's greater awareness of this, is that there needs to be a greater recognition of the role and contribution of science to the SDGs. So the negative side to that is, you wonder, why hasn't science been considered when you talk about, poverty reduction, when you talk about disease burden, when you talk about health, when you talk about nutrition, science has a huge role to play in all of those. And I would go so far as to say, if science isn't recognized in the delivery of these SDGs, well, then they won't be attained anytime soon. So I think there's a big, on the positive side, a big opportunity for science to play a role. And that's really what I want to highlight here today, is the enormous scope. And I think you've seen with the LifeWatch ERIC research infrastructure, and indeed the other ESRI infrastructures of the European Union, and indeed other research infrastructures elsewhere around the world, that they are hugely beneficial. But of course, they increasingly are becoming, in terms of their operation, in my view, in fact, operationally quite similar. So data enabled, no matter what flavor of science they're doing, the data enabling aspect of how you do that science is becoming more defining. And I think this is something we have to recognize. And that then calls for, or rather allows, as I see it, really a lot easier collaboration, not just between the established infrastructures that I've met, but between, unmet needs of science capacity in, for example, Africa and other regions of the world. And I think this is going to be hugely defining in terms of how we do science in future, how science, we heard Helga was talking about, impacts earlier on. And of course, science has to deliver, rather can deliver impacts in terms of achieving the SDGs. And while we talk about the SDGs as goals, remember that you will know that each of these goals has numerous targets behind it. So they're very, very getting more specific. I think that's very wholesome. That's very good. And I think that's very new in terms of a concept model for doing science. But science has to go forward. Science has to go forward with the tools that it has. It has to engage at the strategic level, and it has to show how science can contribute. Now, again, looking at the instruments that we have at hand, I think it's worth pointing out that many nations around the world have aligned various initiatives with the United Nations SDGs. And the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, last December committed to aligning the so-called European semester, which to you and me means policy priorities, with the United SDGs. And we know that in the preparatory legislation and programming for Horizon 2020, the SDGs are baked in. They are there as a key horizontal priority. So again, I would point to that as clear evidence of emerging synergies between policy, but probably more accurately programming. But I do make a distinction between the two. But in that lies an enormous opportunity to advance collaborative science at global level. So just with regard to the SDGs, maybe just some observations on how this matters and why it matters and why data is important to this. So, for example, the mechanism for advancing technology transfer under the SDGs is a so-called technology facilitation mechanism. So I'm not going to bang on about that too much because it's still quite hard to understand what it is. However, one aspect that it does advance is the need for information exchange, technology exchange, and in particular, patent access. And I often reflect on the fact that approximately 7 to 10 million patents go off patent every year. And this points to a huge intellectual resource for the benefit of mankind. But unfortunately, currently, there's no mechanism to access that data, that information, that knowledge, that know-how. Partly that's a lack of recognition of its existence, but it's also in part a lack of data management facilities and data concordance between the way patents are categorized and the way science is done. So that's just one very clear example of an unused resource. And then on the SDGs, as I think I mentioned, implementation is going to be everything. And how is science going to be implemented? How will science help deliver the SDGs? That question can be asked every day. I don't think there's an answer for it today, but it has to be there. And I believe as we move forward on the SDGs, and particularly around the UNGA 76, the United Nations General Assembly 76, taking place in September next year, science will be emerging. And on that, I also feel in my experience that the digital agenda has been very strong at United Nations level. Science has not. And there are reasons behind that which are probably beyond the scope of today's discussion, but I feel it's important to recognize, and I'll come to one or two points on that later in my presentation. Do we need a framework program for the United Nations? I'm being rhetorical there, but I think Europe does very well in its approach in the framework model, which, as you know, originally is treaty-based, so it's very long established. I think, obviously would have many shortcomings, like any massive stakeholder project would, but I think it's very, very viable in terms of fostering and enabling collaborative research at a pan-European and indeed global level. What could implementation mean? Simply, I put that there because we need to define the criteria. That has to be done. SDGs will impact policy priorities and sustainability. I think that's quite obvious, but that has to be an ongoing process. I don't think it's a question anymore of having a policy process, which takes, again, in the case of Europe, 3 to 4 years to design a framework program, which then is implemented over 7 years. So you're talking, practically a decade. I think with the COVID pandemic, we've seen how things can change, and we need response mechanisms to that at the policy, program, and funding level. And I think that's very, very important. And I think it's one lesson that needs to be learned, is far more rapid response in terms of policies and the programs that they enable. In terms of the EU development program for developing nations, the NDC program, science is key. It's not a science program. However, it does address many challenges, including health, the environment, and climate. And of course, I think we don't have to even say that science is going to be central to achieving those objectives. So I think the synergies there between the framework program and other global projects there's enormous synergies. Key role for data, that's obvious. In terms of S3 and the infrastructures and open science cloud, there needs to be a more cohesive narrative around how they contribute to the SDGs. And I would then, advocate a much more comprehensive discussion around the globalization of the S3 elements, and indeed the priorities of S3. Amongst other things, I would say it's probably best in class, and does provide a model for what can happen in terms of data infrastructures, data capacity building at EU level and certainly at global level. But I would also highlight in that discussion, there needs to be a recognition of the role of policy, the role of programming, the role in particular of regulation and data regulation, and also funding mechanisms to enable that. And they have to be discussed in tandem, and not, by DG or by, department in wherever. These have to be looked at collectively. And again, that's what I mean by global regulatory environment. For the GDPR, for example, it has extraterritorial application, so it applies around the world. So how does that consider science? We don't know, in a word. And then POPI in South Africa is the equivalent, well, not exactly the equivalent, but a data protection regulation for personal data. And again, these are emerging and have to be considered in the round. And my final point on this slide would be, we have a very mercantilist approach to international cooperation. So when we talk about trade, very, very conversant on bananas and cocoa beans and tires, but not conversant on data transfer and knowledge and know-how transfer. That's absent from the mercantilist trade agenda. And I think science needs to be hugely important in that respect. So by way of then advancing the global finance discussion, I think the EU's and the digital transition agenda and the United Nations roadmap for digital cooperation are a mirror of each other. There should be a policy dialogue around that. There isn't today. And then I think there should be absolutely an advanced program integration process to deliver on both of those. And with reference to what I said earlier on, digital has been very successful. The digital narrative has been very successful at the UN, not so science. Again, it's a longer discussion, but why don't we then look at science as part of a digital agenda and bring the two together? And of course, I think you can talk about the infrastructures visited in this presentation this morning and around the objectives of digital transformation and its relationship to science. And I think that can be part of a wider digital cooperation agenda at EU level. And I think also by the infrastructures we referred to, by them having a more integrated policy process, so that science generally and infrastructures more particularly become part of national, regional, continental, and global science initiatives. Then the enabled financial environment is necessary. I think that's going to be hugely important for addressing these enormous challenges. And specifically, I'm seeing this narrative evolving at the level of the World Bank, at the level of the International Monetary Fund, at the level of the European Investment Bank, at the African Development Bank. And I think this is very, very recent in my view, that there's a recognition of science contributing to the broader agendas in the area of the Green Deal and the digital transition, that all of these banks are now gearing towards and addressing their strategies towards. But again, the point is that there needs to be greater definition of how science can deliver on that, and scientific activity can enable solutions to be achieved. But that has to be visited at a policy and political level, as well as the implementation level, as well as the programming funding, because otherwise, if there isn't a cohesive narrative around this, then it's going to be very difficult to see how this
Declan, sorry, just to interrupt, 3 more minutes max.
Great, yeah,
please.
I can do it.
Thank you.
Less maybe. So then I'm suggesting around the Kristalina Gorgiev's IMF managing director, you will know, has called for a strong and medium-term framework for monetary, fiscal and financial policies, as well as reform to boost trade, competitiveness, innovation, productivity that can help create confidence for policy action now while building much needed resilience for the future. Building back better, or as I call it, building back together. And I think that's where science needs to be the center of that. We heard reference to education earlier on. Worth pointing out that 1.6 billion children in developing countries have been out of school, implying a potential loss of as much as 10 trillion in lifetime earnings for these students and all the consequent impacts that they have. Interesting fact by the IMF. And in terms of the World Bank, again, post-COVID business environment, we have to look at that in terms of the round. Science is critical to that. And COVID-19 has demonstrated that national borders offer little protection. Terribly obvious, but I think that has a very, very strong message in how banking is done in future. And I think I'm seeing a convergence between private sector investment, the banking sector and the public sector investment. That converging has never happened before. They're converging because they both actually realize they want to achieve the same thing. That convergence can lead to much, much more cohesive policymaking in general and much, much more constructive and advantageous measures to support science capacity building, the related cooperation and collaborations that are going to be absolutely vital and essential if we want to address pandemics, address futures, address inequality, support the engagement of women. This can't be left to chance. This has to be instructed through, as I mentioned earlier, an integrated policy, regulatory, programming and finance environment where banking will make a much stronger contribution in future. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Declan. Very interesting observations, and I totally agree. We are talking about global. We're talking about global advocacy. That's what science also needs to do. You need to send out the right messages to the right fora, and especially also to the right funding bodies. So if there are any questions, again, I would invite to take that to the question and answer box here. Thanks again, Declan. Now we move on to, across the Mediterranean, down to Tunisia, to Professor Mohamed Jemni. He is the ICT director at ALECSO, so that's the Arab League Educational, Cultural and Scientific Organization. And I'm pleased to meet him again because previously Professor Jemni was also our Tunisian ASREN representative in the UME Connect project. So he will give us now an insight into ALECSO's COVID-19 response on the educational front. Over to you, Professor Jemni.
Thank you, Helga. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Yusuf. I'm really glad to participate with you in this edition of e-AGE. I participate already in previous editions. I remember in Jordan and Tunis. And today, of course, in this pandemic period, I'm glad and happy to participate virtually and through this Zoom participation. So my presentation will be about ALECSO initiatives to face COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, this COVID-19 pandemic has many effects, and especially in education. And in this presentation, I will focus mainly on the initiatives of ALECSO, especially for e-learning methods to face this crisis and its effects on education in the Arab world. So this is the ALECSO. So for who do not know ALECSO. ALECSO is the Arab League Educational, Culture and Scientific Organization. Is a Tunis-based organization. It's an organization of the Arab League, established in July 1970. So this year we celebrate the 15th birthday of ALECSO. ALECSO is a governmental organization working under the umbrella of the Arab League, and it has the membership of 22 Arab countries. ALECSO is endeavoring to conduct and coordinate pan-Arab projects related to educational, culture, scientific, and ICT fields, and it's premised on the values of tolerance, moderation, respect of others, and cultural diversity. So in 2 words, it's the UNESCO of the Arab world. UNESCO is the organization of the United Nations, and ALECSO is the organization of the Arab League. So as I mentioned earlier, ALECSO and very earlier, and I remember in March month, when some institutions, some educational institutions in the Arab world started to close their doors due to the coronavirus and this pandemic. So the ALECSO launched its initiative, the initiative for e-learning, to face the disruption of Arab world. So the goals of the initiative is to contribute to developing alternative technological solutions by taking best advantage of ICT to respond to educational disruption in the Arab countries and ensure the continuity of learning, to enable Arab students and teachers to freely access Arab educational contents available through ALECSO's platform and specialized Arab websites and portals, and to promote open and electronic learning to cope with educational disruption in times of crisis through the use of the Arab OER Hub and other educational platforms. Our goal is also to organize training courses via ALECSO's e-training platform for Arab teachers and provide them with the needed technical guidance and coaching so that they can make best use of platforms and tools for producing and sharing educational contents. Our goals also are to promote cooperation and partnership with the competent parties, organizations, institutions, experts, and partners active in the field of e-learning, and share expertise, experience, best practices, and technological solutions to ensure the continuity of learning during the period of educational disruption. Also, our objective is to collaborate with Arab ministries of education to develop sustainable plans for online learnings. And this is very important because we collaborate with Arab ministers and we help Arab ministries to build national strategies to use e-learning and to ensure sustainable plans for this way of learning and teaching. The initiative, this initiative has been implemented in several countries, in particular in Comoros. And in Comoros, we offer to more than 200,000 students the online learning. And this is in partnership with Millennium and with Classira. So Classira is a provider of e-learning solution, and it has a Classira platform. So we offer them the platform for free for all the academic year. And we also organized a training for teacher and for their technical staff. Also in Djibouti, so in Djibouti we offer the online learning for more than 100,000 students, also in partnership with Classira. And also we organized a complete program of training for teachers and for technical staff. Also recently we implement this initiative also on Lebanon, and we, in collaboration with 5 schools, to offer e-learning possibilities to more than 5,000 students. And now we are negotiating with several other Arab countries, in particular Jordan, Egypt, and also several universities in Mauritania. Also, in this pandemic crisis, we published several books, several specialized books. For example, this book, Guidance on Active Learning at Home During Educational Disruption, Handbook on Facilitating Flexible Learning During Educational Disruption, Guidance on Open Educational Practices During School Closures, Guidance on Providing Open and Distance Learning for Students with Disabilities. And the fifth book is about interactive book on artificial intelligence to combat pandemic. So these books are published for free. And in ALECSO, we translate 3 of these books from English to Arabic. And all these books are available on the ALECSO website. Also, to promote sustainable education, we we help 2 countries. So the Republic of Mauritania and the Republic of Comoros. We obtained 1,000 computers for each country, and from Intel. And this is in partnership with our partners, Millennium at EDE, Sustainable Education, and the enterprise GP.IK. So our objective here, and in collaboration with Intel, is to help these countries to ensure e-learning and to help students and teachers to make this computers available for, especially for poor students, to offer them the possibility and the opportunity to have the e-learning possibilities. Also, I would like to present also our ALECSO Hub, ALECSO OER Hub. And the ALECSO OER Hub is a platform for open educational resources. So it's available on this URL, oer.alexo.org. Our objective is to promote open educational resources at pan-Arabic level by offering a pan-Arabian open educational resources infrastructure, where teachers and students from Arab countries will be able to add, create, share, search, and retrieve suitable open educational resources. The proposed OER Hub is deployed internationally and integrated into the federated OER Commons infrastructure, where organizations aggregate and manage their resources, collections, and groups, and share information about their OER work. So this is the ALECSO OER Hub. In Arabic الشبكة العربية للموارد التعليمية المفتوحة. So this is a pan-Arab open and shared space in which all students, all teachers, and all Arab countries, they can share open educational resources. So this is the platform, and also the platform contains a space for every country, and in every country there is a national coordinator to ensure and to help teacher to use their space and to share and to produce and to publish their OER. Also, the platform offers an intuitive tool to create and to publish OER. So in 3 steps. So this is the first step. This is the second step. The second step to publish and to make the metadata for the OER to facilitate their research and their use. And the third step is to add the OER and the suitable space. So in very intuitive way and very easy way. Every teacher can create and can publish and add OER in this space, and of course in the space allocated to his country. In terms of training, we organize many sessions of training. For instance, in April 11th, we trained more than 100 teachers from all Arab countries on how produce and publish OER using the ALECSO OER Hub. Also in June 11th, we organized a session training for more than 1,200 teachers from all Arab countries on how to use Classine and how to use synchronous e-learning. Classine is our partner from China. He's a provider of synchronous e-learning solutions. And finally, I would like to present the ALECSO Initiative for Solidarity. So this is a platform we developed in ALECSO. This platform aims to connect civil society and its institutions to every Arab country in order to collect donation of all kinds for families and organizations that require special assistance and help during this crisis. This will strengthen the relationship between all entities, individuals, government, association, etc. across the Arab region during this critical moment. And of course, this is this initiative. We launched this initiative especially in the period of the first vague of the pandemic in April and in May, where all people are at home, and this platform has been used in Tunisia from more than 250 associations and NGO to collect donation and to distribute donation to people who need this helps in this crisis period. And thank you very much.
Thank you ever so much, Professor Jemni. On a personal note, I wish I had access to your guide for homeschooling because I was desperate in that regard. There were some questions from our colleagues in Oman regarding the accessibility of the teaching material, the resources, but you have answered these questions already. So thank you very much for that. And yes, we had to go online in our in our teaching and learning experiences. It was a necessity. But as we heard yesterday also in the opening panel discussion, it's not going away. It has accelerated the passage to that. It's not going away. It will be very likely to be blended in future education activities. So yes, sustainability, making it sustainable, scalable, that's now the key issue at hand. So thank you ever so much again for your valuable contributions. Okay, now we move on to our last speaker, to Rachad Sanoussi. He is a lab technician at the University of Abomey-Calavi in Benin. He has a background in network engineering, and he will tell us in his presentation about the importance of university intranet to facilitate communication, organizational communication, and the role of structured cabling to optimize it. So over to you, Rachad.
Thank you so much. Can you receive me? Can you hear me?
We can certainly hear you.
Can I share my screen for now? Can you see my screen?
It's coming through, yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Good. Okay. Thank you for the introduction. Distinguished press participants, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I welcome you all again to this e-AGE20, the 10th edition of the International Platform on Integrating Arab e-Infrastructure in a Global Environment. I am Rachad Sanoussi. I am from Benin, and I am a telecommunication engineer. Currently, I work as laboratory technician at the University of Abomey-Calavi, precisely at Forum, Photonic and Digital Broadcasting, where I am dedicated to teaching and facilitating practical work for students in telecommunication engineering. So today, I have the honor to present the result of our research work on the theme, role of treated cabling on the performance of university intranet, the case study of Polytechnic School of Abomey-Calavi. Our presentation will be outlined as follows. After the introduction, we will present the context and problematic of our research work. We will then present the objective of the work and the methodological approach. Our results and discussion will follow. We will finally conclude and state the perspective to this work. Distinguished guest participants, ladies and gentlemen, communication is at the heart of all daily activities around the world, especially in companies. Computer network is a collection of communication resources, computers, and customers seeking to exploit these resources. These universities and schools have communication resources so they can communicate with each other and stay connected to the world. All this can be done through an intranet. But what is an intranet? An intranet is a network whose access is restricted to a community of users. It allows the transport of sensitive or confidential information within a company. Its use can be monitored and controlled, and its resources can be better planned. Why do you need an intranet at APAC? The implementation of the internet is a part of a deep reflection on the organization and functioning of Polytechnic School of Abomey-Calavi, which to offer its users user-friendly condition working. So how to achieve this feat at APAC? Of course, to achieve this feat at the University of Abomey-Calavi, an information system will have to be put in place. To facilitate research on the internet for its students and to allow its staff to stay connected with the rest of the world, the Polytechnic School of Abomey-Calavi, APAC, has a computer network, but this network is constrained by several problems, which limit its efficiency. Among these problems, we can see the following: the permanent inavailability of the internet connection, which forces some professors and even the administration to use 3G modem for internet access, which is not the ideal option given the high cost of the said connection. Another problem is a cascading network resulting in the slow network speeds. We have also wiring for internet connection of different equipment who is poorly managed. The current state of the network poses constraints for new services such as VoIP, IP telephony, video conferencing, and distance learning. Distinguished guest participants, ladies and gentlemen, to improve the performance of the network in order to offer quality service to staff, APAC plans to set up an intranet. So we need to have a network architecture that can be used for future need of intranet. So the main objective of our work is to propose well-structured cabling while relying on a new architecture for the implementation of the APAC intranet. Distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen, to achieve this objective, our methodological approach was, firstly, we studied the existing network. This step is necessary in order to better examine the existing network to identify its strength and weakness. This will allow improvement to be made to any weaknesses. Secondly, we design the new network topology. Thirdly, we choose the type of equipment, the hardware to be deployed on the new topology after comparison of the different network hardware manufacturers. Fourth, we proposed an addressing plan. Then we demonstrate that structured cabling proved to be more efficient for the new architecture. And finally, we designed the virtual environment and did some tests taking account the constraint. We decide that the hardware to deploy on the new architecture is Nicotic because of its meetup functionalities and the cost. GMES3 software was used to simulate the new architecture proposed on Ubuntu, which is hardware coupled on 60 architecture. QME emulate everything, including microprocessor, which is why it is often slower than the host connection. Distinguished guest participants, ladies and gentlemen, good network are the results of the hard work of network engineers who identify network needs and select the best solution to meet a company need. So, regardless of the size and content of a network, an important factor is the proper implementation or design of network. It is follow the principle of structured engineering, which are hierarchy, modularity, resiliency, and flexibility. The hierarchical design divides the network into distinct layers. Each layer of the hierarchy provides specific functions that define its role in a network. Here, in this figure, we have a new topology that we have designed. The new topology has 3 large blocks: the core layer, the distribution layer, and the access layer. The core layer indeed is the backbone of a network. This layer provides high-speed switching, and it composed of very powerful switches. The distribution layer is made of layer 3 switches that are powerful enough to handle large amount of traffic. And the access layer allows the connection of segments of a building to the network. It allows user and work group to access the network. Distinguished guests, participants, and ladies and gentlemen, a structured cabling system is important to the success of an organization as the people who work in it. When properly designed and installed, it provides a cabling infrastructure which predicates performance as well as flexibility to grow and adapt to change over time. Indeed, a structured cabling system has 6 subsystems: the entrance facilities, equipment room, backbone cabling, telecommunication room, horizontal cabling, and work area. Distinguished guest participants, ladies and gentlemen, this figure shows how the technical rooms are connected To ensure a good continuity of the information flow on the network, we propose to place 7 technical rooms. Each technical room will serve one array of action while taking into account the feature needs. The main technical room, where the school serve will be located, will be placed in building D as close as possible to variable of the internet connection.
Rachad, sorry to interrupt. 3 more minutes, please.
Okay. Distinguished guest participants, ladies and gentlemen, the environment set up for the simulation purpose is one shown in the figure opposite. To perform our simulation, we have reduced the network into 3 zones. So the simulation environment has 3 main zones: the core of the network, with the distribution array, and the access array. The test consisted on pinging and traceroute between clients. So what discussion can we make of our results? At the outset, we can say that the tests were conclusive. The different machines managed to communicate with each other. Thus, the environment is functional. Customers will be able to communicate with each other. Scalability, redundancy, performance, and ease of maintenance are the main advantages of this network. In addition, the environment meets the identified constraint, and it is extensive and can be used for future intranet needs as the addition of a new services. However, we could think about moving from IPv4 to IPv6 as microtik equipment support IPv6. A study on the dimensioning of resources to be allocated to new services is also interesting. Distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, our work in the framework of the study has allowed us to propose a new architecture for the deployment of the APAC intranet. We took into account a certain number of parameters in order to make judicious choice of the material and protocol to be used. A switching cabling system is necessary for the deployment. A functional vision architecture was therefore designed and recommendation has been made. For the future network, for the future work, we propose to carry out studies on the dimensioning of services in order to make the work of the staff more pleasant and more efficient for a global improvement of the APAC. We hope to carry out the same study to the University of Abomey-Calavi and even in another universities. This will be great help to our educational system in this time of health crisis. I speak about 19 COVID virus. Distinguished guest participants, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the end of our presentation. Your comment, question, and suggestion are welcome. Thank you for your keen attention. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you ever so much, Rachad. So Rachad has submitted a paper proposal for this conference, and we always encourage keen and very able young researchers to be listened to. So thank you ever so much for that. Rachad, please also, there is one question for you to consider in the question and answer box, if you could kindly tend to that. We are coming to the end of this session. For me, it's been sometimes a bit of a stressful experience, but overall incredibly informative, incredibly insightful, and I hope each of you can take also something away from these 2 hours. I'm actually quite pleased that we managed to keep the time and stay in the time frame which was allocated. I'd like to thank again everybody for sticking up and sticking it out with us, and for your invaluable contributions. And there is a lot I hope to follow up from the ASREN side with all of you. So I wish you a very, very good day, continuation of the day, and I hope to see you in person in the near future. And I give the final word to Youssef as host of the conference.
Thank you, Helga, and thank you, speakers. Indeed, it's one of the best sessions through the contributions of this distinguished speakers. So thank you all. Actually, we invited the speakers to present something to the community, but also to put something for us to follow up, because this is on the interest of ASREN to be more engaged with user communities, with researchers, and with the projects and so on. So I would like to thank all the speakers again and invite you to join the next session. We'll start in 1 hour time in a different room. So my colleagues will communicate the access to the last session of today. It will be on open science. It's the continuation of our interest to promote open science and to be in the open access and all of that. So you will receive shortly another reminder for and access information to the next room. Definitely we'll follow up with all of you. And if I want to ask to thank the participants, I will specifically thank Shukri bin Ramadan, because he's, I think if we were face to face, I would give him a prize or something, because he has been attending all sessions and asking questions in specific. So thank Ramadan. I know you are hearing us, so thank you for that. See you in the next session. Goodbye.
Thank you all. Goodbye.
Shukran. Bye.
Shukran.
Shukran.